Hello. So a bit of an impromptu video here because a little bit's been happening in the Unity world, and a few people have been asking my thoughts on it, and I wanted to sort of dive in and explain sort of where I stand with it. So let's get to it. So in terms of what's going on, Unity have announced some pretty major pricing changes, and a lot of folks, me included, are really not happy with those changes. And I think that's very reasonable. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of what the particular changes are. Part of that is because those changes are themselves changing. So that's sort of something that's in motion. And I think also, regardless of what the changes are, it actually doesn't really impact my viewpoint, even if they abandoned all of them at this stage. The damage is kind of done, which I'll get to. But I will link to a bunch of articles related to this. So what I want to do is I want to talk about what I think of the changes, other than obviously I am not happy with them, what they might mean for my future projects, and what it might mean for the channel, which is this stage, no changes. So, okay, what do I think about them? I think they are really bad changes. I think they have been done in bad faith and communicated badly. I don't think there is any aspect of just how the process around it has happened and or unfolded that is okay. I think it's completely unacceptable. Changing license terms on developers that might be near ship, they might have been in development for something for months or years, or have already shipped, is just not okay. Like that, I think that is fundamentally a rug pull and is really just unacceptable. The vagueness around the tracking is also unacceptable. Too many of their answers to this have been not actually giving answers and have essentially come down to no, we've got tools for that, or we'll have tools for that. Trust us. Except the way they've handled the changes, I don't feel that I can trust them. So, giving the answer of just trust us, the tracking's all going to be fine, that's not good enough for me. So, abandoning all of the changes, even if they got there and put out an update saying we heard the feedback, we are abandoning all of these changes, that actually wouldn't be good enough for me at this point, because that doesn't undo the damage. They, I think, have acted in bad faith and communicated badly. They have broken trust there, and just undoing the changes doesn't actually fix the damage. They have to actually do a lot more than that to even, I think, begin to actually fix the damage. So, what would I want to see? I would want to see the removal of that clause that permits them to force new terms on developers. I think, as a minimum, once a project has started, that should be able to be frozen. But ideally, I think it should actually just be removed, because you they might, previously to this announcement, they could have used the argument of, well, we're not going to do anything that's going to be, a problem. It's there as sort of a safety net thing for them. They could have tried to argue that before. I think it's still a weak argument, but they could have tried to. However, they've gone and used this clause to make changes that I think are quite unacceptable. So being able, I just don't think there is a way for them to move forward and me trusting them without removing that clause. I think it just has to go. Developers should be able to opt into the changes. It should be a case of, cool, here's new license terms. You can either continue on your current license or you can opt into a new license. That is how I think it should be. I would want to see full disclosure of the tracking process. The vagueness around this is unacceptable. Like, I'm not going to speculate on how they might be doing it because I don't think that's helpful. They have been very vague about this, and it's just not okay. I want to know what tracking capabilities there are, even if they are switched off in the runtime and editor. I would want to see that broken down by version and platform as well. This is something that, to regain trust, this needs to be provided, because they have implied that they have this capability or will have this capability. And the language around it has been really vague in terms of what they currently can do and what they will be able to do. It's not, they're not clear enough, and I think developers and end users have a right to know what capabilities there are there. And I think we need to know if there are any, and again, whether even if it's inactive, dynamic execution or update capabilities for in the runtime or editor. So if it's possible for, without user knowledge or user intervention, for there to be an update or a modification to the runtime, or a batch of commands executed by the runtime, same for the editor, if that capability is there, even if turned off, that needs to be disclosed. Because, again, this is something that's really important to know, and for rebuilding trust, really, because they've implied some level of tracking there, and there are a lot of different ways of how this could be handled, and they need to give information. That's fundamentally what I think they need to do. Now, it's very understandable that they would want to not disclose specifics of some of these algorithms, in particular for the tracking side. That's understandable, and especially publicly disclosing the details of those algorithms, I can understand that. But that's why we have security researchers. That's what they a part of what they exist to do. They could get multiple well-regarded ones and give them full access to review the code. Require them to openly publish a summary of their analysis. So not something where they're explaining enough for someone to reverse engineer the tracking or things like that, but at least enough for the researcher to be able to say, cool, here, is this secure? What is it disclosing information that is personally identifiable? Is there flaws in this algorithm? Things like that. I think that's absolutely essential, and I think there would need to be future audits for that. So I think that's an important aspect for it, and I think that should be able to be done without Unity being able to filter what is actually presented. Again, non-disclosure agreements can keep algorithm specifics, closed, and security researchers are very well experienced with being able to navigate these waters. So I think that's a process that they absolutely should do. So that's what it would need to happen for, starting to rebuild the damage. Now, in terms of what it means for me. So I'm not making any immediate changes. I want to see what happens in the short term. I'm hoping that they take on the feedback that they are getting and actually reverse course and start to address some of these issues. But I don't know if that's what's going to happen. But I want to wait before making any immediate decisions. For my commercial projects, I am weighing up a switch away from Unity. I feel that with those, the trust has gone with Unity and their conduct around all of this. They haven't acted in good faith. So that means that I have to consider other options where I'm not developing essentially on a moving platform. I need to have confidence in terms of what the conditions are license-wise when I ship and post-ship, things like that. So unless Unity takes steps that address that, from a risk mitigation point of view, I don't feel I have much choice but to look at options other than Unity. Now, I'm not intending on stopping making Unity videos for the foreseeable future. Again, I want to wait things out. I also know that there are still lots of people wanting to learn how to make Unity stuff, so I do want to keep trying to provide those resources for people because there are a lot of people that the pricing changes won't impact, and they understandably want to create things. And Unity it is a great tool for quickly creating cool projects. It's a very capable engine. It's also very quick for getting up to speed on. So it's a good tool. And I would hate to see a good tool damaged by very dumb pricing and policy changes. So I'm not going to be stopping making videos in the foreseeable future. A switch to making Unreal tutorials as well isn't really an easy or a good option for me at this stage, and for a few reasons. So one of the big reasons is that a lot of the commercial work I do is in Unreal. And that means to avoid the potential for even the appearance of the potential of a conflict of interest there, or breaching non-disclosure agreements, there would be a large swath of areas in Unreal that I would not be able to cover. So anything AI related, pathfinding, behaviors, sensors, all of that, I would not feel comfortable doing any tutorials on that in Unreal, because that strays way too close to all of the stuff that I do as commercial work there. So it's something where I could ask permission for covering stuff, but at this stage it's too close for me to even bother asking for permission from the various companies to be able to do that, because there's just too much risk there. So that leaves me covering things that aren't AI, which there's definitely things there that I could cover in Unreal, but I think there's a lot of really good resources already out there that do a great job of explaining it. And I don't know if I'd be able to necessarily add anything that's of huge value there for it. So it's something where that's not going to happen anytime soon. It might in future if I find useful areas to cover in the Unreal field, but at this stage, it's not something I'm going to be doing. So that's where things stand for me with these changes. I'm going to observe and see what happens, but I am looking at other options, and regardless of what Unity does, they're going to have to need to do a lot for me to have that trust in them again, just because it's been so appallingly handled. That's sort of where I stand with it. Be great to know where other folks stand with it. So if you've got questions, chuck those in a comment below. As I said, I am going to link to a bunch of articles below of sort of current details that are there in regards to it. So I do recommend checking those out, read the full information. And yeah, hopefully Unity throws away these changes and also provides a lot of the information needed to give back confidence in the engine, because it is a good engine that has a lot of capabilities and that I really enjoy using, and that a lot of people enjoy using, and a lot of cool things have been made with it. And I think it is such a shame, such a tragedy to see things like this happen that damage and harm the usability of the engine, because it's so unnecessary. And I really hope it gets sorted. That's sort of where I stand with it. So yes, if you do have questions, if you do have comments, chuck those in a comment below. But until next time, bye.